No, it's not. Let's keep it real. And that's why on this show, sometimes we get a little pushback. We get a little hate. Oh, well, it's a thin line between love and hate, so we can deal with it, right? But I've been saying this forever. Like, you're never going to get respect when people got to pet you on the head. When they got to say, oh, good boy, good girl. When they got to rub you. You know what I mean? Instead of just being real with you. I don't need you to rub me. I don't need you to glaze me, as she said. Keep it 1,000. Wow, that's how you get real respect.
So you're witnessing a former NFL All-Pro just tear apart the WNBA player's entire approach to these contract negotiations on live TV. The brutal part? His analysis is spot on. Marcellus Wiley just voiced what's been on everyone's mind, but nobody dared to actually say. These players had this incredible wave of public backing and somehow managed to completely turn that same fan base against them. Now they're trapped in this deadlock with owners who refuse to budge an inch. So what led us to this mess?
Oh, little sub-world, so they can be great. You're the best NFL defensive end pass rusher that went to an Ivy League school that's from the hood. Hey, bro, I don't need all that. It's making you delusional. Support and this false, not if I'm not. Like, this false support and this false confidence, all you do is delude.
Here's the thing about getting false support, though. It breeds false confidence. That's exactly what Wiley's diagnosing here. When he mentions people just patting you on the head instead of giving you the truth, he's calling out this entire media bubble that's been wrapped around the WNBA for the last couple years. This league finally caught fire after Caitlin Clark showed up. Ratings hit numbers we hadn't seen since way back in 1997 when everything started. But instead of using that momentum strategically behind closed doors at the bargaining table, players decided to take their demands public, even though those demands don't line up with what the money actually looks like. Check out what the real numbers tell us. The WNBA peaked in viewership back in 1997. Then everything just flatlined for over 20 years straight. The second best ratings in league history happened right now in 2024. Everything between those 2 points was basically a desert. Wiley remembers all this because he was grinding in the NFL through that entire period. Watching the WNBA fight to survive season after season while getting propped up by NBA money.
But I remember the first year. WNBA had its highest ratings, and then the second highest ratings are right now. Everything in the middle, cratered. What happened? I tell you what happened. One, we get tired of ceremony. Everybody gonna show up for the wedding. Everybody gonna wish you well with the honeymoon. Who coming over on Wednesday in about 6 months just to kick it?
That wedding comparison hits hard because it captures exactly what went down. Everybody came out for the WNBA's big debut in 1997. Stars sitting courtside, wall-to-wall media attention, genuine buzz about women's pro basketball, finally getting a league that could actually last. But here's the thing about weddings, though. They're just events, and events draw crowds that wouldn't normally show up. Fast forward 6 months to some random Tuesday night and see who's still in the building. That's when you find out if the relationship is real. The WNBA couldn't pass that test for 2 full decades. This league only kept breathing because NBA owners kept writing checks to cover the losses year after year. That's not running a business. That's charity disguised as professional sports. Now that the WNBA finally has some real buzz happening again, players are acting like they've been packing arenas for years, instead of recognizing they're barely into year 2 of what might be a comeback story.
We like sports because there's a home team and an away team. We like sports because it's home and visitor. Go at it. We got to have rooting interests. And they don't want to create that, so then they suffer. It's just too much pandering. Golly, just talk about it. She's sorry. She good. She's great. Candace Parker can't say Paige Beckers needs to work on defense.
Yeah. See, it's stuff like that. And that's what Rachel Demita was getting at when she said, yo, the WNBA media is terrible because you can't even say, like, they wanted Candace Parker to lie and pretend like Paige Beckers was the second coming of Kawhi Leonard. Like, and she got pummeled for it. She got pummeled for saying, wait a minute, you guys, y'all kind of doing a lot. She hasn't made an all-defensive team. Like, calm down.
This part gets really messy for everyone who's been cheerleading the WNBA in the media. Rachel Demita built this massive following covering basketball for years, and she said the WNBA gets terrible media coverage because nobody's allowed to just be real about anything. What happened next? She got completely demolished for saying it. Candace Parker is a straight-up legend and works as an analyst now. She couldn't even mention that Paige Bueckers hasn't made an all-defensive team yet, without people coming for her. Stop and think about how insane that is. A Hall of Fame player can't share basic stats about a college player without getting dragged. That's not journalism. That's straight-up propaganda. When your whole media setup runs on hype instead of honest breakdowns, you end up in this fantasy world where players actually think they've got way more power than they really do. So, owners sit down across from players who believe they're negotiating from this position of strength, while the actual financial reports are telling a totally different story. The WNBA has bled money in 27 out of 28 seasons. That one profitable year was basically a fluke in the accounting. These aren't opinions. These are just the facts.
And no lie. And I like the song too. It's a banger. But I'll be like, I say, baby, we run the world. We, men and women. Depends on what you running. Don't be going around here thinking, kids start that all the time. Girls, you can't do it, daddy, because you're not a girl. Other than childbirth, I don't know what you're talking about, baby. I don't know what you're talking about. All right, let's beat it up in the comments. Let me know what you guys thinking. Yeah, Chris Henry says what I've always said. Lower the damn rim.
Now Wiley's going after this whole cultural message that created this delusion in the first place. His daughter singing Who Runs the World Girls is adorable, but when that same energy turns into professional athletes thinking they should get NBA-style revenue splits despite bringing in a tiny fraction of the actual revenue, we've jumped from inspiration into complete fantasy land. The WNBA wants that 50-50 revenue-sharing deal in the new agreement. NBA players get roughly half of all basketball-related income because that league pulls in $9 billion every year. The WNBA generates around $200 million and has never figured out how to stay profitable consistently. Those numbers aren't about gender, they're just math. The owners keep saying no because agreeing to that split would mean cutting even bigger checks to cover even bigger losses.
The three-point line is closer. The damn time is shorter. You can't do nothing with this damn rim. Just, all right, keep suffering then. Keep suffering. Silly. Like, help yourself. Help yourself. Help yourself. Give me an exhibition. I guarantee you, if you hype it up enough, All-Star game, 9-foot rims. Fix the WNBA. Because what's going to happen is everybody going to be watching that damn All-Star game like, damn. My God, did Paige Bueckers just windmill on somebody? And then you'll be like, I got to see that again. So then we watch a regular WNBA game. We'd be like, boycott. No, WNBA without the 9-foot.
This whole lower the rim discussion always sets people off. But Wiley's actually making a solid point about improving the product. The ball's already smaller in the WNBA. The three-point line's already moved in. The quarters are already shorter. All these changes exist because the average WNBA player is about 6 inches shorter and way less explosive than the average NBA guy. That's just biology, not some kind of attack. So why is rim height the one adjustment nobody can even talk about? Wiley's idea about a 9-foot rim for the All-Star game actually makes perfect sense from an entertainment angle. Picture Paige Bueckers windmilling on a fast break, or Angel Reese catching an oop and throwing it down with some serious power. That would be must-watch television. The dunk is basketball's most electric play, and the WNBA has basically eliminated it from their product by keeping those rims at 10 feet. But you can't even bring up that conversation without getting accused of disrespecting women's basketball. That's the exact problem Wiley's pointing out. This league has surrounded itself with people who respond to every piece of criticism by screaming sexism, instead of actually dealing with the real substance of what's being said.
Man, I don't know, man. These players seem dug in, bro. These players seems dug in. I don't know, man. Nasty work, though. Here it says, let's get to this. It says Fevers make first ever announcement on Kelsey Mitchell amid WNBA offseason.
So here we are at the core of this whole situation. Players have dug their heels in completely. They've gone public with statements about what they think they deserve. They've turned this business negotiation into some kind of civil rights battle. And they've done all of this while owners are staring at balance sheets showing decades of losses with just one brief spike in interest that might not even stick around. Indiana Fever just announced that Kelsey Mitchell hit the game winner for her overseas team's first ever victory in that international league. Mitchell's still getting love from the Fever's social media, even though she's playing somewhere else during this whole CBA mess. That's the same kind of relationship NBA teams have with their stars too, because NBA players generate enough money to make that treatment worth it. Here's what Marcellus Wiley gets that the WNBA players seem to be missing. Power in negotiations comes from having options and consequences. What options do the players actually have if these CBA talks completely fall apart? What options do the owners have? They could just shut down a league that's been costing them money for 3 decades anyway. That's not equal power. That's not even close to equal power. The fact that players walked into these negotiations acting like they control everything shows exactly what Wiley means when he talks about delusion created by fake support. The media world around the WNBA spent 2 years telling players they were finally getting the respect they'd earned, that Caitlin Clark proved the audience was out there, that the ratings explosion meant everything had changed forever. Some of that is actually true. The audience does exist, the ratings did jump, things got way better compared to before. But better compared to historically awful isn't the same thing as actually being good. The WNBA's biggest regular season game in 2024 pulled 2.3 million viewers. That's incredible for the WNBA. It's also smaller than a boring regular season NFL game. Smaller than a decent NBA playoff game. Smaller than college football when 2 ranked teams play each other. Context matters here. Players heard record ratings and figured that meant they suddenly had NBA-level negotiating power. Owners heard record ratings and thought maybe this thing could eventually break even if we play it smart. Those are completely different ways to read the same information. That's why these talks have hit a wall. Wiley's point about identity politics versus pure excellence is huge here. The WNBA has marketed itself heavily on representation and breaking down barriers. That matters culturally, but it doesn't generate revenue. The NFL doesn't dominate because of identity. The NBA doesn't dominate because of identity. They dominate because they've built entertainment that hundreds of millions of people want to watch no matter who's playing. The WNBA is still stuck in this phase where a big chunk of their audience watches out of duty or political support instead of pure entertainment value. You can't sustain that long term. You can't build a profitable league on people watching because they feel obligated. You need people watching because they absolutely can't miss what you're putting out there. This connects back to the criticism of WNBA media coverage. When every analyst has to praise every player, when honest critiques get treated like personal attacks, when bringing up stats is considered disrespectful, you stop the league from building the kind of real fan connection that creates lasting growth. NBA fans go to war over whether LeBron or Jordan is the GOAT, because the media created room for that argument. NFL fans have real disagreements about quarterback rankings because analysts can criticize even the superstars. That conflict creates engagement. The WNBA's demand for nothing but positive coverage has actually hurt the development of passionate fan communities because passion needs the freedom to criticize what you love. Rachel Demita got destroyed for speaking up. Candace Parker got attacked for sharing basic defensive stats about Paige Bueckers. Both situations sent this crystal clear message to anyone covering the WNBA. Keep it positive or get canceled. That's how you end up with players who really think they have more power than they actually do. Because nobody with a platform is allowed to tell them any different. The owners know all this stuff. They've been paying to keep this league alive for decades. They lived through the false starts and the failed marketing pushes, and the empty arenas. They were there for that entire 20-year collapse between the So when players show up to negotiations demanding 50-50 revenue sharing and guaranteed contracts and bigger rosters, the owners basically say, prove you can sustain this growth for 3 more years first. That's not unreasonable. That's just standard business thinking. You don't rebuild your entire financial structure based on one solid year after 20 years of bleeding money. Players have been told by their media bubble that they deserve this immediately. That waiting is an insult. That owners are being so they've made their stand publicly, which makes it almost impossible to back down without looking like they lost completely. Wiley sees this clearly because he's been through NFL negotiations where actual billions are on the table. He knows what real leverage looks like. He knows what it takes to build sustainable business models. And he's watching WNBA players make tactical mistakes that are going to cost them both money and momentum. The real tragedy is that players actually had a moment of genuine leverage. If they'd negotiated quietly and strategically during the 2024 season, while Caitlin Clark mania was going completely insane, they probably could have gotten real concessions from owners who were seeing dollar signs for the first time in decades. Instead, they went public with their demand, turned everything into a social justice campaign, and gave owners time to analyze whether the spike would actually last. Now we're sitting here in January 20. Season's over, stars are playing overseas, and that ratings explosion is just a memory instead of current reality. The owners don't feel any urgency anymore. The players lost their leverage, and both sides are trapped in this public standoff that nobody can easily walk away from. So was Marcellus Wiley right about this? Did the WNBA players completely overplay their hand? Just look around. No deal in sight. Players scattered across international leagues, owners not moving an inch, and a fan base that went from energized and supportive to tired and frustrated with this entire mess. That's not what victory in negotiations looks like. That's what losing your power in real time looks like. The worst part is, none of this had to happen this way.